live without him. Nothing in this world could ever make me doubt him. Yes, I'm so in love with him. My insides go woo, 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 woo. My God is my King. Yes, he is the source of my strength, my everything. Blessed is the King of Israel that cometh in the name of the Lord. My God is my King. Yes, he is the source of my strength, my everything. Ooh, yeah. There's no problem that my Jesus can't handle. He's wise. He can handle it. Yeah. The glory of the one who came from the Father to the only Son. Conquered hell and the grave. Yes, Jesus, you are. You are. Thanks to you, I can be delivered. I can be set free. There's no more chains holding me. Without you, my world would stop. Jesus, you'll forever have my heart. Lift up your head, oh ye gates, and the King of glory shall come in. On the throne, I can't go on. My God is my King. He is the source of my strength, my everything. There's no problem that my Jesus can't handle. He's wise. Because you reign, I'm not worried about my problem. 'Cause I know you're gonna solve them. You're my source. You're my strength. You're my everything. You're my everything. Yes. You're my Jehovah Rapha. My healer and my deliverer.
And now, live from New York.
Hey everybody, it is Demone, Seraphin, and we are here live on Broadway, off stage right, and we are so excited about tonight's guest. Her name is Danette HOLDEN, and you might remember her from Annie on Broadway, Shrek on Broadway, Laughing Room Only on Broadway, and then this incredible show called Cagney the Musical off Broadway. The girl is just incredible, and we're so excited to have her. The bio is long, a lot to read. So I just want to jump in and say, hey, Danette, welcome.
Thanks so much. That was quite an introduction. I liked it.
Listen, it's all the truth, and it's big things. Danette, you are freaking incredible.
Aw, you're sweet.
It's the truth. Listen, Danette and I go back because we went to undergrad together.
We sure did.
That's right. At the
CCM, yeah.
good old CCM. And Danette has been you've been playing it up since you left.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've been very lucky. You know, you get good training there, and you learn how to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. From many years, I was sort of known amongst my peers and my friends as the queen of regional theater, because I sort of played every lead role you can play in a regional theater.
Yeah. No, you did. You got around. I mean, everywhere. You name the theater, this lady has played it. Pittsburgh, PLO, Theater Under the Stars.
Yeah.
I mean, North Carolina. Yeah, Pick the Mill Playhouse. I mean, you have been everywhere, but you're freaking incredible. Well, incredible, but more than being an incredible performer, because we can talk about that all night. I think what's even more important is that you're an incredible human being.
Oh, geez, Pete. I hope I can live up to that.
No, it's true. It's true. You are immensely talented, but you have a heart the size of Texas. I want our audience to kind of just go back to the beginning for us and tell us, really, outside of all of these amazing credits, who is Danette? Where did this all start?
It started, you mean, where did my theater career start? I can tell you that. That's a fun one.
How did we get into all of this?
Well, I started dancing. My mom was a single mom, and the babysitter, her daughter was in dance, and so because I went wherever the babysitter went, I went to dance also. So that started when I was 7, and I've danced since I was 7. And then when I was 10 years old, my 5th grade music teacher in Jinx, Oklahoma, at public school, public school in Jinx, Oklahoma, she called my mother at home and said, your kid sings really well, and I want her to audition for Annie at Theater Tulsa, which was like the huge theater in Oklahoma. And my mom, of course, put her hand over the phone and said, "Danette, you sing?" It's a favorite memory of mine, and I literally from the living room screamed, "Yeah, my teacher says I'm real good." It was very funny because I was 10, I had no idea, but my teacher she would stay in at recess and teach me the songs. And then I remember the audition like it was yesterday, because it was like every little girl in Oklahoma showed up to this audition. It must have been 500 girls. And a lot of these people have like moms who like put makeup on them and did their hair. And I had like hand-me-down pants on from my boy cousin, because I had like no money, and my mom was a single mom, and she would never put makeup on her 10-year-old, and she would never have taught me any moves to do because she didn't know anything about music at all. She can't sing at all. No one in my family sings. I'm an absolute anomaly. So I went to this audition. It was very funny. I went to this audition, and I really think the director thought I was Little Orphan Annie. Compared to everybody else, I just look homeless. So 4 callbacks later, and the director said to me, "Danette, sweetheart, where's your mom?" And I was like, "Oh, she dropped me off. She'll be back after a while." She didn't even know. She just dropped me at the door and said, "Just go do your thing, and I'll be back later."
That is hilarious. Our backgrounds are kind of similar in that, Danette, my mother never stuck around for auditions either. She would drop me off. No, she would drop me off, and she was like, "All right, do your thing. I'll be back in about 25 minutes."
I just love that. Just like this little boy with the voice of God. Just, "I'll be back later, son. Go sing for Jesus."
Really, it really is it. My mother, because I kind of wandered into this theater thing. I was 9 and just kind of wandered into it, and yeah, my mom had no clue. My mother was not a performer. She was a preacher's kid. She, sang in the choir, so all she knew was church. And so, yeah, and so when I wanted to do this, when I wandered in on this theater thing and saw people playing theater games and acting crazy and not getting in trouble,
exactly. You know what? It saved me in a lot of ways. It is the great savior in many ways. And the people in theater, generally speaking, I don't typically generalize, but I will say most people in theater are like shirts off their back kind of people. Yeah.
I mean, you are. I mean, and I keep going back to it only because I listen to you, I watch you. We're also friends on the Book of Face, and I watch you, and I watch your response to the kind of ills and ails of the world. And I have to tell you, there's a biblical proverb that says, "Your gift will make room for you." And I think when I listen to you, your gift is certainly your talent, but I think the thing that makes room for you is your heart and your sensitivity. And so I want the kind of to kind of get an insight on that. What makes Danette, what makes her heart so open and kind of sensitive to the craziness that's going on in our world? And how do you use your gifts to speak to those crazy things?
Listen, let's talk about that for a minute. I have been struggling. I think you even know I've been struggling just from my responses. I really struggle. I am like the quintessential, little white girl who had everything but on paper. Do you know what I mean? I'm a privileged white girl. And I say that in the sense that, like, if I get pulled over by a cop, I hope I have my mascara on, because most likely I can get out. I'm just not even going to lie. Every time I can get out of it.
Yeah.
It's not a question of fear ever with me. There's no fear when it's. I mean, I get that panic a little bit that I have to pull over on a highway or something. But it's always like, how am I going to finagle this, as opposed to like real fear. And that's what I struggle all the time. So now I'm struggling with sort of like privileged white girl guilt. I have guilt, and I talk to my friends who have much different struggles than me, and I want to know, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what actions can I take? I can tell you that I've always had an open heart. It used to drive my mother crazy because she in a good, I mean, it's a pro and a con. She said that she's never seen anybody who found the good in people more than me. Like, I'm always finding the good in people, and I like that, but it made me naive for many years. And now I look around at the world and I just think, like, what are we going to do to heal? Like, what are we going to do as a group of people? And to be honest, it's got to be the white folks that fix it. It has to be. Yeah. It has to be. Because here's the thing. The black folks didn't do anything wrong. But the white folks freaking did on every level. And I'm not even just talking about, like, going all the way back to slavery. I'm talking about the entire, if you've ever, there's a documentary on the industrialization of America that I watched a couple years ago, and it's, what we did to the Chinese immigrants went to transcontinental railroads. I'm Cherokee Indian. What we did to the Indians on the Trail of Tears. My whole family, I'm on the Cherokee Rolls. So my whole family was on the Trail of Tears. Like, my ancestors were. And, But my point is, there aren't a lot of things to look back on in American history to be proud of, honestly. And it was with, like, a heavy heart that I realized that I'm proud of a lot of things that America stands for, like freedom and what we say on paper. We're freedom and everybody's equal. Like, we say those things, and I think that some of us believe it, and I want to think that a majority of us believe it. But I don't think anybody's willing to, like, really. I've been trying to, like, that's my struggle lately. I've been really trying to, like, figure out, like, what actions, not words, but, like, what actions can I do? Can I take to, like, work towards a better. We have to be able to have an open conversation about racism. It has to happen. Yeah.
Tell me, how do you see that playing out in our industry, on Broadway, in film and TV? Like, how do you see? What's your hope? What do you see now, and what's your hope in terms of how we deal with that in our community?
I think we will be the first to evolve. I think our industry will be the very first, and we are the first to evolve on that front. Like, there's not a question I couldn't ask you, Demone. If I needed to ask you, I've done it before. I've asked you those questions, hard questions. There's not a question on race that I couldn't ask you, honestly, and that you wouldn't make me feel stupid for asking it, and you would try to answer it in a way that I can understand it. I recently read there's a blog, a Harvard-educated black woman who wrote her friend. It was like what my white friend asked me, what could I do, and she listed off the things that are just her everyday life, her everyday struggle when she steps foot out of the bed against racism. And I just thought, oh my God, things that I will never even, like, I take for granted stepping out of the bed. Yeah. But in our industry, I think being able to ask questions to each other, like being able for you to ask me the hard questions and me to ask you the hard questions. That's where, like, the communication, and without being, like, bitter and mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important. I think the conversations are important. There's a section of us who say, I'm tired of teaching white folks how to do blah, blah, blah.
How to behave, I know.
Yeah, but I also think, because it's true, last week, or 2 weeks ago, we had on Bob Cuccioli, and it's like, you know the allies whose hearts are pure, who are honest in their pursuit of trying to make things at least better. Trying to level the playing field so that we can all literally walk in the door as a people and not be so separated by the things that obviously separate us. You're a white woman, right. I'm a black man. That's obvious. And we can celebrate the things that are obviously different and still walk into a space where we're afforded the same opportunities. I think that's...
You know what my friend, do you know Jason Veazey? Of course you do.
Yeah, I do know Jason, of course.
My Jason, who I love so much, and who also I ask hard questions to all the time, and he also he's so patient. Oh my God, he's so patient with me. He's patient and good, and because do you know I'd never heard the term woke before, before last year. I'd never heard that because I'm a little privileged white girl up in here, just trying to live my life.
Yeah.
And I had never heard that, and then when I realized that, oh crap, that buck stops with me too.
Yeah.
You can't just pretend like you cannot keep walking on the sidelines. You got to get in the game.
You got to get in the game. Absolutely.
You got to get in the game.
Absolutely.
And the game for me at least has to be tell me the rules of the game. Let's talk about the rules and how they're skewed for me and how they're skewed. They're skewed for me automatically. I already have I'm 10 points up stepping into the game.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So
I think.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. So how do I, being the one that's, I use this, whenever you're favored in any way, maybe you're the kid who was favored, right? So say your parent had, your parents had 2 kids, and you were the dream child, you were obviously favored, but your response is always, well, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. At some point, you have to stop and either shed light on the situation back to your parents, or you have to. There has to be some. What's that word that I'm looking for? Retribution, or not retribution. I'm not saying the right word. What am I saying? Reparation. What's the right word? Anyway, there's a word that's I know I didn't own slaves, but at some point I have to acknowledge that we as a white people as a group did own them. So at some point you have to face up to that. You have to take responsibility for that. And for what's still happening.
Yeah. Because it's like the writer wrote this new book called The New Jim Crow. It's it just takes on a different costume. It's not the obvious change of the slave ships that left Senegal and the like, but it takes a different look. And so I think we all have to look at where we are honestly, say where we are honestly, and make steps to move ahead of it. It's the denial. It's the denial.
And for me, it's the inaction. So and that's part of denial, right? So it's really easy if you close your eyes. If you close your eyes, it's like if you if you're looking from the outside. If you're looking and you can see the audience, if you close your eyes, they can still see you.
Yep, absolutely. It's still there.
It's one of those things where, and that took me a long time, and it's hard to actually say it out loud. But that's that whole woke thing. It took me a long time to figure out that it's a real and true thing.
Yeah. But you know what? I will say this to your credit. because this is what I remember, and it's what I always remember about you, is that even in school, your heart has always been there.
Always. That was even since I was a little kid. But looking around me, not everyone's was, and I never said anything out loud.
Yeah.
Either out of fear or denial or overlooking.
Sure.
And now I think I've had kids, and I'm just like kids are the great. They sort of opened me to everything. I don't have fear anymore in a lot of ways because of them. So I'm not afraid to speak my mind now.
Explain that. You don't have fear because of the children. Because what I think is interesting, especially for what we do and what we do in the climate that we do it in, to have children. Yeah. It's an incredible thing, and I love that you said that you, because of them, you don't have fear.
Yeah, and here's why. Here's exactly why. Because when I watch my children have the white privilege, when I watch them in their pasty white, blonde, not really blonde, but like blue-eyed, pasty-skinned selves, and I watch their very best friends, like honestly, their very best friend are Indian, like red dot Indian, like from India, and their parent, Akil and Anjali, they're the best friends. Their parents have an Indian accent, and watching them have obvious racism towards them is. I can't fear saying out loud to my children that that cannot happen, and you stop it immediately when you see it happen. Yeah. And so because I want my kids to be even better than me, and I want them to be better than me sooner than me.
Yeah. I think that's
so you can't fear it. You can't fear it. You have to teach them right away that they've got it real good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. What I admire about you, and even in the conversations we had, our children have not yet met. They've not met yet, but they will. But I'm excited about making that happen because I think it is those steps that will propel our culture, our country forward.
Yeah.
And again,
too. If we can get a hold of enough children.
Yeah. It is, and get them all in the same room, get them all in the same space, because it's cliche, we always say, you've got to be carefully taught, how to hate. But on the flip of it too, I think, and I love how you speak to this, is that, but you also have to carefully teach how to, especially our children, how to continue to appreciate the thing that we so take for granted or that we abuse. We abuse the differences of our color. But these kids, when they're together, there is such freedom and open curiosity about hair and eyes and tone, and when they play, and they're all. It's not. There's no stigma attached. It's different and it's not deficient.
Well, it's interesting because I remember I have two really favorite stories, but one when Archer was 5, he came running up the hill. He had been playing with Akil, and he came running up the hill, and he was like, Mommy, me and Akil, we could be twins. In my brain, I'm thinking like, okay, like what's the criteria for twins? What is he thinking? And I was like, oh yeah, Archer, why is that? And he was like, we both love soccer. We both are in the same grade, and we both have little sisters the same age. And I was like, you know what, Archer, you're totally right. You could be twins.
Yeah.
Totally could be twins. And then my other favorite story is at Ellery's birthday party. I took them to tea, and I told them their moms to all bring them early in a pretty dress, and I was going to do their hair and their makeup. I was going to put, a little bit of makeup on them, and we were going to go have tea. And Anjali, who is Indian again, I did her hair. She has, honest to God, the most beautiful hair I've ever seen in my life. It's like thicker than 6 of my hairs. It's like if there were 6 of my heads of hair, Her hair would still be thicker. I mean, it's like thick, dark, ebony. Anyway, it's stunning, naturally wavy. So I do this like beautiful like French braid all the way around her hair, and then I put like red flowers in it. And Ellery goes, "Oh, Anjali, you look like a Mexican princess." To her like Indian friend. It was just so funny because like it was the biggest, highest compliment she could give.
Wow.
It was just so cute because, like, the things that she thinks about Mexico is, like, colorful dresses and flowers in their hair and beautiful French braids, and, like, that's what she thought a Mexican princess must look like.
Yeah. In the context where we have leadership that wants to build walls and think of them outside of their beauty. Yeah, it's an incredible dynamic that we can learn from. We can learn. We crazy adults can learn from what
When did we lose it, Demone? When did we lose it? When did we lose? Like, who said something to us as children that made us go, oh?
I wonder. It's like when you become keenly aware of what you assume is yours, and so whatever you can do to protect what you've assumed is yours and solely yours. You know, it's interesting because none of us belong here. The Cherokee, the Arapaho, the Chippewa, this is there. But we just made assumptions of this land, especially our white brothers and sisters who are just like, this is it. We're going to make America great again by reclaiming what's ours, you know.
Right.
And,
that's right.
But it's not just white people, because I think black folks have done it too. We go, well, this is ours. You know, you got us over here and we built this place, so this is ours, and so we're going to take it back. And so I think
you're so fair. You're such a fair person.
Well, because I think we all have to take ownership of the stuff. You know
what's funny, Demone? I thought to myself, well, you're sending us backwards when you do this, but a friend of mine who is like an incredible, you probably know her, incredible singer. She riffs like nobody's business. She's a white girl. Riffs like she is, I mean, she is magical. And she that's sort of her calling, is she posts YouTube videos and all this stuff about riffing, and she does concert work, and she's amazing. And some black women got really angry and were saying, like, on her, you know, they were commenting about her stealing something from black people, meaning stealing that kind of singing. And I thought, okay, don't do that. You're wrecking it on the other end, man. We're trying to, like, if we're all trying to do, that's what's fair about you. I don't think it happens as often, I will say, in the reverse, obviously, as it does with white folks, but but that's one example where it happened, and I was like, wait, don't do that, because I've been trying so hard. Like, I've been trying so hard to, like, fix it and heal it and try.
Well, I think, here's what I think to that, and I think I know who you're talking about, and I love her. Here's another thing, and I think she does this too. I think she doesn't do what she does without giving homage either.
She always does.
Because I think that's the thing, and I think we have to open our eyes to the people who honor you. Because I mean, let's face it, you know, Elvis Presley stole without homage. He stole without homage. Pat Boone, he stole without homage. But I think our eyes have to be open to those who are not seeking to steal your contribution, but that they've taken a strong love and appreciation for the contribution, give you homage, say, hey, this is what I learned from my friends over here. And I think it's the crossways too. I think, you know, of course, when black folk come in the room, the expectation is that we're going to riff it down. But we sing some enchanted evening without a lick, we can go, see, because maybe the riffing thing is what is intrinsically mine, but I learned from the likes of a Terry LaVault or, that, hey, there's beauty in this kind of what we would think of as square and straight. There's beauty in that too. So you should keep your lifting, keep that, because that's yours. That's who you are. That's where you came from. But then here's the other thing too. Take this and don't throw it out. Don't judge it, because this is also part of the life that we're choosing to walk into. I think we have to give people homage. I think we have to honor. It's honor. It's honor.
I do too, Demone, but here's the thing. I get really angry when people talk about, like, it's like the whole Black Lives Matter and the whole, like Black History Month or something, and people are like, well, why isn't it White History Month and All Lives Matter? I'm like, okay, I honestly do think, like, well, because it's White Lives Matter every day. Every day. We live our lives with White Lives Matter. You don't even know it because you ain't woke, because it took me a long time to understand that too. So I get it. But, like, one person at a time, you got to take responsibility for what you're taking for granted in this life.
Absolutely.
One person at a time. If it takes all day, I'm going to do one person at a time.
Yep.
But and also the whole it's White History. It's White History Month. It's White History Year. It's White History history. It's White History history. That's it. Yes. We have overtaken all. We rewrite history in our favor because we're in charge. And it absolutely makes me crazy. It makes me so crazy. And listen, I don't even want to get all that political, but I will say, when the example that was shown to us, whatever your policy points are, when you are given a human being who obviously loves his wife, obviously protects and educates and would die for his children, who is highly, highly educated, like so much smarter than you and me, sorry to offend you, but so much smarter than you and me, it's unbelievable. And his wife is equally as smart and smarter than 99.9% of the population. Eloquent, kind, obviously loves babies. He thinks that marriage is special and good and wants to uphold it and live by and lead and live by example. When we're given a human being like that, and then we're given this human being who is in charge now, and people think it's better now with this example, is when I got really numb for a long time, because I realized that I can't get through to people like that. You can't change them. But you know who you can change, Demone? You can change there are people out there who have like real serious regrets. And the reason I know that is because I grew up in Oklahoma, and so I have friends out there who honestly thought, I just want to change. I hate politics. I hate it so much. And so they pulled the trigger for the wrong horse, and they hitched their wagon to the wrong horse. And now they really regret it, and now I'm sure they fear, because they're like at the back end of being woke. Do you know what I mean? Like they're slowly stepping over the line into Wokeville. And it's hard. It's hard, and it's humiliating, and it's embarrassing, and your pride is hurt, your ego is hurt, when you realize what a numbnuts you were.
Yeah.
And how shallow your justifications were.
Yeah.
There are people out there like that. I believe that. Now, there are people like that, in Charlottesville and people like that you're going to have to just let those people be.
Yeah.
Because you can't go after those people. They will never see clearly.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So, Danette, here's a question. What you have this amazing gift. You are funny. You dance. You sing. In your mind's eye.
Yeah.
And using what we do as kind of a launching board. How do you see us leading the way?
Say that again, Demone. How do I see?
How do you see us leading the way? How do you see us singer, song, dance, singing, dancing, acting, directing? How How do you see? Because the question I asked that because we are still wrestling with some things even in our community, but I think it's our community that will lead the way. And I'm curious and I want to hear your heart on how do you think, even as we're wrestling with the things that we're wrestling with, that we can lead, because people look to the artists. They always have.
Well, you can definitely lead with humor, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So comedy is a big help, right? So anything that sort of is umbrellaed under comedy, you can maybe change some hearts through some comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I always think that that's the most disarming way in. I also think casting is a huge, huge thing right now.
Yeah.
I think we're on a real, we're on a precipice, there was a question on the Book of Face the other day that said, how do we feel about casting Jews in Jewish roles? Meaning, is that a requirement? And it got real sticky, because I was like, well, how do you know someone is Jewish? Because by looks, just like you and I talked about earlier, you're a black man. I'm a white woman. I'm never going to get cast in Dreamgirls, and you're never going to get cast in Cagney.
Right.
It's just not, but how do you, if you're Jewish, maybe you don't look Jewish. That's how people hid from the Nazis, is they tried not to look Jewish. So how do we solve those problems? And then I said, well, are you required to be Jewish to play a Jew? Are you required to be a mother to play a mother?
Mm-hmm.
It gets real hairy. It gets real hairy in there.
Yeah.
The whole, the engineer in Miss Saigon. Remember how controversial that was?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's very okay, well, is it just Asian, or does it have to be Vietnamese? Does it have to be Korean? Does it have to be, do you know what I'm saying? How are we going to do this, guys? But we have to start being more conscientious in our efforts to cast properly.
It's funny that you say this, because we did this concert of Ragtime at Irving Fisher Hall, and in the cast as mother was Leah Salonga.
Yeah.
Leah Salonga played mother. And I remember sitting in the after party with Terrence McNally, and Terrence McNally said, and next I'd love to see Audra play mother. Because at the core, certainly on the surface, that's a white rock family. But he said, for that role, that is a womanist, feminist, if you've ever seen it. And it became about this woman's passion and this woman coming into her own power and to her own self. He said, I would love to see Audra sing that role. And I was blown away. I was blown away.
That's really interesting, because I wonder, Demone, if it would confuse the audience. Would it confuse if you brought, because inevitably people will think, what's happening?
Well, here's what's interesting to me, Danette, because I think there are things that are so specific. I think the surface message of Ragtime is so specific that, there's this WASP family, there are these immigrants, and then there are these black folk. And so I think you ask the audience, when you do, I think people can look at Audra and maybe stretch their disbelief. I think it was easier for them to do it with Leah, because Leah was still a lighter person. And ultimately it was Leah Salonga singing Mother. I don't think we could do it in a regular performance, because if I saw a black woman with a white man who was railing against her, I would find it very problematic, and I couldn't follow the flow of the story.
That's right, because historically it's not something about that doesn't ring true.
Yes. I think there's something that is very specific. Now I'm going to get in trouble because I'm going to say something. Once on This Island is happening. And again, it's a very specific story. And so I'm always curious now, when you have these specific stories, how do you tell these stories and honor what was so specific about them? Here's my point. Leah Salonga and she's playing Erzuli. Now, this is a story about intra-racial conflict between light-skinned blacks and dark-skinned blacks. It's a story. So in terms of casting, I know we want to lower the playing field, but then there are some things that are just specific.
Yeah, see, I agree with you on that. I don't think you're in trouble. I think what happens is it stirs up controversy where there doesn't need to be any. If you're actually trying to tell the story, then you're going to have to use. Then looks become important. You can't you can't confuse the plot line.
Yes.
When it's something that's not a race-based story, like Carousel. Carousel is a fictional piece that race isn't the heart of the thesis of this. It's not the heart of the show. So when Audra plays Carrie, it doesn't matter. That's
now,
here's
something interesting in that, because you bring up another interesting point. Because Carousel is coming back.
Yeah.
And when cast as Billy Bigelow, this strapping black man against the daintiness of an Abby Mueller.
Yeah,
and
why not?
So, well, now watch this though, because in this climate, optics say a lot. And you've got this black man.
Yeah,
beating this white woman.
That's right. No, I get it.
So I wonder. I think the strides that we have to take. I think we've got to open our eyes and be mindful. You know, it's the big debacle with Great Comet, don't you think? I mean,
God, yes. Oh God.
No matter what the truth was behind the scene, the optics of it just looked.
That's right. And so, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So I'm always.
So casting is hard.
Yeah. But I wonder. But I don't know if it's hard. I think we just have to really be thoughtful. I think right now we're not very thoughtful in our casting. We go for easy casting.
We go for easy casting or controversial just for the sake of being controversial.
Just for the sake of being controversial. Yeah.
No, I agree.
But it requires, I think, us to just either be really thoughtful, at least to the point where you go, okay, a white guy cannot play Martin Luther King.
No, come on. When it's you can't. That's what's so funny. Like when we were casting Cagney. You have to be mindful of what Cagney, the man Cagney, looks like. So when we were trying to find people to understudy Bobby, well, the reason he's doing the show called Cagney is because he looks like James Cagney and has that skill set. That's why he wrote the show in the first place. If you're looking for someone to play his Irish mother, then you need to have someone who looks like an Irish mother.
Yes.
Sorry, you're trying to follow a storyline that's so fast paced that you have snippets and scenelets to get this plot of an entire man's life across. So sorry, there probably aren't going to be any black folks in Cagney.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to explain and so I go back to Once on this Island. If the entire plot line revolves around light-skinned blacks versus dark-skinned blacks, then you have to cast accordingly.
Yeah.
Or it's all lost in translation.
Yeah.
And you've screwed yourself with now you're not telling the story.
Yeah. Now you're just creating controversy.
Now you're putting a star. Yeah, you're creating controversy, and you're putting a star in a role because you want to sell tickets.
Yeah. Wow.
I also think that happens a lot in our industry.
Oh, of course.
That's the whole Great Comet issue, right? Yeah. They were trying to put Mandy in to sell tickets.
Yep.
And
optics said a completely different thing.
That's right. So you know what they should have done? Maybe replace that black actor who wasn't quite a big enough star, and have thoughtful conversations with him about look, we got to sell some tickets, so we're going to put another black star. Why not put in Brian Stokes Mitchell or?
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? So the optics of it just look like, oh, we had to get a star in here for a hot second to sell some tickets.
Yep.
Because I tell you what, Stokes Mitchell would sell some tickets.
Of course he would. Of course he would. Of course he would.
I mean,
but it requires, and here's the thing, it requires us to not, because the habit is, because the trend right now is to put people of color. But the habit is we've only gone to our white counterparts.
Wait, what do you mean? Explain that.
So here's the habit. No one thought, let's put Brian Stokes Mitchell in, because the natural thought was, well, Mo's not going to do it, or Mo's not going to do it, but let's go get, it's gotta be, what am I saying?
Yes.
Manny Patinkin was the easy white guy to go get.
That's right. So you're talking about the default is always to the white guy, the default button.
Because that's been the normal practice. It's the trend now, especially with the advent of Hamilton, to go, ooh, maybe these people of color are bankable, and we can. But the habit is, this is how we've always done it. We've always done it with our white.
See, some people are going to be like, well, Hamilton shouldn't have been cast with all these Latina and black actors, and so they're missing the point too. That whole point of that show is to shine a light on racism for that very reason.
Absolutely. It's the conversation we have about the Wiz, Danette. It's funny. The Wiz was the same way. Why can't white people do the Wiz? Because you got the Wizard of Oz, and the Wiz was written because we couldn't do the Wizard of Oz. You didn't want to do that game. And
can we talk about the Wizard of Oz? The Wizard of Oz is absolutely fake people in the sky. It might as well be aliens. They can
Absolutely.
That's how Shrek was. Shrek was like, I did Shrek, and it was just all kinds of us. I tell you what, the covers had the hardest time. Our swings had a hard time because we ranged from like teeny tiny and skinny and tiny to, large and big and tall and black and yellow and red all over. We were just all because we were fairy tale creatures.
Yeah.
We didn't have to be anything.
Yeah. I'm so enjoying this conversation, and I know our audiences are too. But our time is winding down, and I want to pose this question to you that I pose to our guests as we close up the show. What's your dream? What's your dream?
What's my dream?
Mm-hmm.
That'll make me cry. I think my dream, because honestly, I struggle. My dream is to be able to balance having this career and a family and give each their due.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. You know what? You're doing it. You're doing it. And I'm so grateful that you took the time to come in and share that kind of balance with our audiences tonight.
Oh my God, we got deep, Demone.
Yeah. I
love it. I have expectations.
That's what it's all about. And so, hey, you guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We want to thank Danette Holden for joining us on the show tonight. And I want to remind you that you can go and pull the show up on YouTube. You can share it with your friends. But make sure that you join us next week when we have another incredible Broadway star off stage right. Have a great night and be blessed.
Do I just hang up, Demone? Is that what I do?
that's God above, God of righteousness, a God of peace, a God of justice, everything you need. The seas, God of the rivers and the streets, the earth, the sky, moon and the stars. All things great are small. He's God, He's God. Nobody like Him. His name is God. He's the Alpha, Omega, the beginning and the end. He search the world over, you won't find one. Nobody like Him. His name is God. He is God. Nobody but God. Oh! He's God! Come on, somebody! He's God!